Owen James Hart, the self-proclaimed King of Hearts, was one of the WWE's most charismatic wrestlers and was the youngest of 12 children from the legendary Hart family. Coming in from a wrestling family, there didn't seem any choice but for Owen not to be a wrestler. And after training in both Japan and his father's promotion at Stampede Wrestling, he was offered to come to the then known WWF in the summer of 1988. He entered the WWF as the Blue Blazer, a gimmick that catered to Owen's fast speed and agility in the ring. It was refreshing to see a wrestler cater to more than just 3 moves than we got from other popular stars at the time. Rather than making wrestlers dependent on their bodies and showcasing them off as superstars, Owen brought in high-flying speed and agility to the ring, creating quick but fun matches. The gimmick didn't last long, however, and both Owen and the WWF parted ways in 1989. The gimmick was dropped indefinitely in 1991 as he lost a Mascara con Mascara, i.e. mask versus mask match against El Canek in 1991. After making a brief appearance in WCW in 1991, he returned to the WWF as one half of tag team High Energy with partner Koko Beware. Having only a handful of matches as a team, Koko had been dropped and was replaced by Owen's real-life brother-in-law, Jim Neidhart. They formed the New Foundation, but again the partnership was so short-lived and dropped immediately in 1993. But it was in 1993 that the WWF could see potential in Owen as a singles competitor, alongside his brother Bret Hart. Rather than being an ally of his brother, his character turned into a jealous young sibling with the idea that he was always better than his brother, who always seemed to be in the spotlight. This would be Owen's most famous character. It was also where Owen had most of his success, becoming a 2-time tag team champion with Yokozuna, a 1994 King of the Ring winner, and a 2-time Slammy Award winner. Much later on, however, Bret Hart and Owen became allies and put their sibling rivalry aside and formed the New Hart Foundation with the British Bulldog, Jim Neidhart and Brian Pillman. The faction they formed was a first, as it would seem to be heels in the USA and faces in Canada. It was sad to see, however, that once Bret had left the WWF in 1997 following the Montreal Screwjob, they didn't really know what to do with Owen, as all members had disbanded. Both the British Bulldog and Jim Neidhart were granted quick releases from their contract to jump over to WCW. Owen was denied a release from Vince, but was also skeptical as to what the WCW could have done with him. Bret revealed in an interview in 2010 that Bischoff was unable to match his WWF contract, and thus creating a reason why Owen did not switch over to WCW. Even though Owen embraced his joining with the Nation of Domination as a Black Heart, Owen still seemed out of place. Gone was his lovable crybaby face character, and what we were now introduced with was a no-nonsense, antisocial and mature version of Owen Hart. But again, like the New Hart Foundation, the stable started to dissolve with the elevated success of both The Rock and Farouk teaming with Bradshaw, forming the APA. But during this time, the WWF were taking a much more adult-themed direction with the Attitude Era. Owen was known to be a family man and did not want his children to be exposed to such lurid storylines. His wife Martha Hart told of how the WWF would keep giving Owen ideas regarding Deborah Michaels involving infidelity, and other such sexually suggestive storylines involving both Mankind and Goldust. This left the WWF running out of ideas as to what they wanted to do with Owen next. Talent would then come up with the idea that Owen would slowly evolve into the vintage Blue Blazer character that he portrayed almost a decade earlier. The Blue Blazer gimmick was there to cater to Owen's goofy side, as it portrayed a hapless superhero, ridding the WWF of evil. In many ways it was spoofing the old style of the WWF, with Owen spouting, "Say your prayers, eat your vitamins, and drink your milk." The WWF wanted Owen to make a bumbling superhero's entrance, which involved swooping down from the rafters and comically flapping his arms to seem as if he was flying. The stunt entrance was similar to what Sting had been doing in WCW, and he had done it in numerous times without any problems. They had actually performed the stunt successfully on an episode of Sunday Night Heat, where he came swooping down and comically couldn't get out of his harness. The stunt team on this occasion involved riggers that set him to rappel from one slide wire, similar to that of Shawn Michaels' entrance at WrestleMania 12. This way seemed safer, as he did not need to release himself at any time, and with the wire he was able to bring himself back up without any problems. Since the stunt was successful, the WWF creative team headed by Vince Russo wanted the entrance to be funnier by having Owen release himself just at the last point to seem it looked like he fell flat on his face. For the pay-per-view Over the Edge, Owen was booked to win the Intercontinental Championship for the third time and go over, defeating the Godfather. On the 23rd of May 1999 at the Kemper Arena, Kansas City, Missouri, stunt rigger Bobby Talbot had advised Owen go through a number of dry runs with the harness on. Even though Owen wasn't afraid of heights, he still didn't feel comfortable in doing the stunt and declined the dry run. Talbot requested that Owen should familiarize himself with the equipment as it was a different setup. Owen shrugged it off and told him that he'd done it before, so no big deal. Owen was also persuaded to practice at least once by WWF's Vice President of Events, Steve Taylor. But no matter what, many could tell of Owen's uncomfortable attitude towards the stunt. But in Owen's mind, after declining the Lewis storylines, what would be available next, and so he proceeded on. To add to Owen's discomfort, plans were also suggested to have midget wrestler named Max Mini to be accompanied with him in the harness. He would wear an identical outfit to Owen. But plans had been scrapped though, as there wasn't enough time for Max Mini and Owen to practice both in the harness together. He was due to make a practice run at 2 PM immediately after his workout. 2 PM arrived and Owen failed to turn up. He clearly did not want to go through with this stunt. But finally, at exactly 3:30 PM, Owen tried the test run. He was advised not to touch the release cord before landing in the ring. The test run was successful, even though Owen's cape made it hard to keep his hands away from the release cord. Ironically, on the same night, the WWF had an ambulance and paramedics on standby to hype up the angle regarding Vince's kayfabe injury. Owen seemed different on this day. He wasn't his normal jokey, playful self. He was tense, stressed, and angry for having to go through with the stunt. These were emotions rarely displayed by Owen. After bumping into legend Harley Race and his wife, who jokingly remarked, "Be careful, that rope doesn't break," he headed to section 221, climbed the rickety wooden ladder to the catwalk above. There above, amongst some electrical wiring, was a 100-foot odd length of rope ready to rappel Owen down to the surface below. Remember, this stunt was different to the one used in the first stunt. This had a quick release mechanism, which was given by the idea by Vince. He wanted the quick release because a harness would have taken too long to get out of. As Owen took his cue to rappel down the rope, he noticed his cape was giving him bother. If not positioned properly, it could have strangled him. Owen took his mark and leapt off. But midway through, at 78 feet in the air, Owen's release mechanism had triggered. With no rope to hang on, Owen fell straight down, landing chest first onto the top rope. The fall was almost a foot away from the nearest turnbuckle. Audience members looking on were confused and horrified as to what they just witnessed. Was it part of the show? Was it a mannequin? They did not know. Jimmy Corderas, who refereed the match, noted that Owen was screaming something on the way down. He remarked in an interview that Owen was most likely telling him to move out the way. Unfortunately, still on the way down, his flailing lead had hit Jimmy Corderas straight in the head. However, things were much worse for Owen. He was unconscious due to the violent impact that tore his aorta. His lungs began to fill with blood almost instantly. With a blank stare in his eyes, you could see that he was fading away. Jerry Lawler was seen leaping out of his seat to tend to him and signaled for the paramedics to come down and tend to Owen. As both Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler gave an update on what had transpired, Owen's life was fading as they wheeled him out to the Truman Medical Center. Unfortunately, whilst attempts had been made to revive him, there was too much internal bleeding. Owen Hart had passed away. Whilst those who were live in attendance witnessed the whole event unfold, those who were watching on pay-per-view were still unaware as to what had just happened. Even though the event was shown live, there had been a slight delay between the live feed and airing. With the delay, the production team immediately jumped to a pre-taped interview of Owen. They then cut to Jim Ross making an announcement of his death. As for footage, does it exist? According to former WWF announcer Kevin Kelly, he confirmed in a written column that the footage of the fall actually exists. It sits in the WWE video archive in Stamford, Connecticut, with the instructions never to destroy, view or duplicate. He also mentioned the footage of Darren Drozdov's paralyzed accident is in the archive with the same instructions. Whether this exists or not, nobody else has revealed. As far as I am aware, there has been no known leaked footage. The WWE never released the event on DVD or video and discontinued the event named Over the Edge. The only footage that has been released on such sites as YouTube and Dailymotion are bootleg VHS copies. The event had also been put on the WWE network in February 2014, but was heavily edited and did not include the announcement and aftermath of the fall. As of February 2016, the video has been taken down. The only evidence to exist of his fall is a few photographs taken by an amateur fan. These, however, are copyrighted by the original owner, but can still be viewed on Google Images. After Owen's death had been announced to the world, many had thought the show would close early as a mark of respect. The announcement had not been given to the live audience, so they did not know what had just happened. People in the audience did not know whether they had just witnessed a death in the ring or not. Vince was unable to comprehend what had just happened. He was watching the events unfold from gorilla position. The Rock commented in an interview how McMahon did not know what to do and asked the wrestlers whether they wanted to finish the show. No pressure. Both Vince and the other wrestlers did not know what to do, but decided the right thing to do was to carry on the show. And that is what Owen would wanted. Many people, including his brother Bret Hart, thought that it was wrong to carry it on, and certainly not what Owen would have wanted. Whether it was the right or wrong thing to do, the show carried on nevertheless. As a mark of respect, the next night Owen's widow Martha Hart filed a wrongful death suit against the WWF. Since the WWF had not used a backup cable and locking carabiner such as used in mountain climbers, which had been the safe way to rappel, the WWF's use of a quick release cord had not been approved for stunt use. Also, the release cord which was taped down to the stunt vest did not have any slack in it, meaning it was very easy to trigger without even touching it. The investigation done by Martha Hart's lawyers revealed that the WWF had been using another rigger for years who always used the industry standard locking carbiner system. He recalled that they asked him on multiple occasions to use a quick release, which he always refused due to safety reasons. In an interview with Smith Hart on Hannibal TV, he revealed that Vince McMahon wanted to settle out of court for $93 million. No delay, no publicity. Bret Hart quickly intervened and told the family how they could get a lot more, and turned down the offer, with hopes of securing more and burying McMahon. In the end, the family only got $2 million, which was a fraction of what McMahon had originally offered. According to Smith, the WWE also alleged that they wanted to buy the Hart family's mansion and turn it into some sort of shrine for Owen. As for Owen in the now WWE, he's hardly ever mentioned, never in any WWE video games. This is solely due to Martha Hart, as she owns the legal rights to his merchandise and prefers not to deal with the WWE or Vince. She has since released a book on Owen titled Broken Hearts, and only since recently made a deal with the WWE for a documentary entitled Owen Heart of Gold. Will he be in the Hall of Fame soon? I hope so, as he deserves a place next to his brother Bret, but only time will ever tell. I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Behind the Titantron. Be sure to check out my other videos as well, and I'll see you next time for some more wrestling content.